Hi, Michelle. Welcome to my channel, Journey and Beyond Untold Stories. How are you? How are things? How's life?
Oh, good, thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
Uh, I think I would like to, first of all, you are such a great leader and inspiring scientist. You inspire so many of us out there. I wonder what made you become a scientist.
Oh yeah. Also, I started working on genetics, and I'm actually an identical twin. So I think that's what made me I was always really interested in genetics, and I just found that really fascinating. So I think that's what made me interested in working in that area.
Wow, amazing. So you've got a personal story linked to this.
Yes. Yeah.
Is is your sister also a scientist?
Yeah, she's an engineer. So I think she's more mathsy than me, and I always really like more biology things and more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why Alzheimer's?
Oh, so
Start.
I think I kind of found myself working in that research area when I finished my degree. So I worked as a research assistant actually in Huntington's disease. And then, yeah, I just found it, I always just found it really interesting. And then also my grandfather was diagnosed with dementia as well. So, and I guess like most people, you have an experience of dementia in your family or people you know. And so I think, yeah, it's a really important research area. And yeah, so I was really kind of happy to work in that area.
Right, nice. So, Michelle, I've got a lot of fun questions laid out for you. Not fun for people like us, like me, who don't really get to focus on Alzheimer's, every day in their life. So, I wonder if you can enlighten us. If our brain could really talk, what would it be trying to warn us about years before Alzheimer's shows up?
Yeah, so we know that, so actually the kind of pathology or like the damage in your brain starts up to kind of 20 or 15 years before you get any symptoms of dementia. So it's kind of a silent thing that's happening that you might not know about. So I think that's so a kind of a really important research area that we work on is trying to identify people who are in this, what we call a prodromal disease phase. So before you have any symptoms, but where hopefully in the future you might be able to have an intervention or, a drug that could help prevent the kind of ongoing damage to the brain.
Right, right, right. So, if in the simple language, so say if a person like me, who's a scientist, fortunately, but say someone who's not a scientist and someone who's not aware of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and they are at a high threat of getting one, say 15 years later, what they should be doing today to just to keep a track of their own brain health.
Yeah, so we know there's quite a few risk factors for dementia and Alzheimer's disease that we know of. So these actually kind of, sadly, they're really just things that should do anyway to keep yourself healthy. So we know that risk factors from middle age include things like not smoking, keeping your weight, not being obese, and reducing your risk of other diseases such as diabetes, and hypertension. So really kind of keeping generally healthy is really important. And also keeping your mind active. So we know that actually education is one of the high protective factors for dementia. So obviously you might not be able to change that from when you're young, but you can keep your mind active as you get older. And also things like social interactions are really important. And also reducing your risk of depression. So that also, goes to kind of social interactions and keeping your mind active.
So, can you give us a couple of tips how to keep our brain active?
Yeah, so it's actually in kind of previous years was a lot of kind of talk about brain training and things, and actually we don't need to do anything in particular. It's really more about just doing what you enjoy. So research has shown that even actually social interactions are really important. So just talking to someone, like talking to your friends and getting out of the house and doing things and not being lonely is actually one of the most important things to keep your mind active. And then just anything like craft or reading or just anything that's not kind of passive, like not just watching TV or staring at screen, but actually using your mind properly, doing things.
Yeah, right. I think playing games probably can be one of the things. Games which involves brain.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think we are all a little afraid of losing our memories? And what's the first thing that usually fades? And can we get it?
Yeah, so I think that's the most scary thing about dementia is that you would just start to forget people and lose your memory. But actually with Alzheimer's disease in particular, the first thing to go is more kind of your executive function. So people always ask, how do you know you're getting Alzheimer's or dementia? And they worry about kind of forgetting people's names and that kind of thing. But actually, we all do that. If you're very busy and stressed, or as you get older, you do get a bit more forgetful. But with dementia, the first sign is really kind of if it affects your day-to-day functioning. So one example would be if you got lost going somewhere that you would have been to many, many times before. So if you normally know your way, but then you keep getting lost, that would be a sign, an early, or kind of not being able to do something. So one example from my family was my granddad cooked a lettuce instead of a cabbage, and he just didn't think, like when he was eating it, it's like, oh, this cabbage is horrible, but he just didn't realize that he'd actually cooked a lettuce instead. So it's kind of, it's very sad. So it's kind of, things that affect your day-to-day life.
If dementia or say Alzheimer is in someone's genes, is it really a done deal, or can we outsmart our genes?
Yeah, so it's definitely, so we know that Alzheimer's is partially in your genes. So if you have family members with Alzheimer's, you do have an increased risk. But there is also, the combination of genes. So the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's is a gene called the ApoE gene. But even people who have 2 copies of that don't necessarily go on to get Alzheimer's disease. So it's not a predetermined thing. So if you do, your genes do affect your risk, but it's also kind of partly in a way down to luck as well. But you can make yourself more lucky by, reducing your risk factors.
Nice. Can we train our brain to protect from dementia, or is that just another health myth? Like, you said that we can take certain measures, but is it really effective long term? It's just a health myth. Like, you can exercise more, keep your brain more active. But does it?
Yes. So so I would say when you're talking about brain training, people sell kind of brain training things online and that kind of thing. And I would say that's not, probably avoid those, or don't kind of invest too much in those, because that's just kind of one repetitive thing that you're doing over and over. So that's probably not really, in the long term, it doesn't really work. You just get better at doing that particular thing.